Blog Talk Radio.
Beheading the Hydra of tyranny with the sword of truth. What is truth? How about not lies? Join Basra Parsons and David Lopez on the Truth Will Overcome Tyranny live podcast at 5 p.m. PST on Saturdays on blogtalkradio.com/the NWO will fail to discuss the big issues that the corporate media don't want to know about. That's blogtalkradio.com/the NWO will fail. Also check out our website at truthwillovercometyranny.com because only truth can overcome tyranny.
What we got to say, fight the power. What we got to say, fight the power. Come on.
Illuminati Exposed Blog Talk Radio. Orders to flunk, nigga. Fake gangster, you on my long shot. Quick to get popped if I catch you on the wrong block. I keep a full clip up in my tank, and you get tossed by the boss when you're fucking with banks, nigga.
Hey folks, it's David Lopez here on Truth Will Overcome Tyranny. Yeah, what's going on there? I'm hearing an echo. Anyway, totally hearing the echo.
Is that better?
It's still echoing.
It's you. It's you.
Me? Okay, anyway. All right. Well, yeah, this is I'm from Truth Will Overcome Tyranny, facebook.com/overcome tyranny. We've got /the NWO will fail. And yeah, this echo is doing my head in. But anyway. Yeah, I can totally hear myself. What's going on? I'm just going to check my headset here.
Okay, while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and remind people of some action alerts. We have the November 2nd March Against Corruption all around the world. They're still looking for organizers, and obviously they're still looking for participants. You can go to facebook.com/marchagainstcorruption. That's their Facebook page, and find the information there that you need to get involved. Their events page can be found there, as well as their organizer page. And, of course, they're always there to help everybody. Just send them an inbox message or whatever. That's November 2nd, March Against Corruption. This march is to support the Anti-Corruption Act, the American Anti-Corruption Act. This act is for getting money out of politics, basically, or controlling it, a little bit more transparency, controlling the money in politics, and also controlling the revolving door policy. Currently, senators have 2 years constraint before they can fall through that revolving door. This proposed law is intended to make that a 5-year span, so limit their ability to play that revolving door policy that we see so commonly now as they move back and forth between corporations and lobby positions and things like that. So definitely go check it out. It's the American Anti-Corruption Act. You can do a search for it and read those titles. We also have the Million Mask March on November 5th. So they're still working on trying to get that together. And then we have a march on D.C. on September 9th. This is the peaceful march. So just bring water and yourself and your sign. And that is on September 9th. Did you get your headset fixed? You with me, David? Hello. We're going to go to a break, and we will be right back. Looks like I lost David. We're having technical issues. There's a surprise. seems to be the theme lately. Here's a little Nirvana. Be right back.
All right. Is that me back in?
You are back,
Okay.
sir. Hello.
Good. Okay, yeah, sorry guys. I had this god awful echo and I'm back in. Now, okay, so we're talking about banks. Basically, what can I say about the banks? I guess the first thing to talk about is, I mean, you know, we all dislike banks. We hate banks, and bashing banks is easy. They tend to be ripping you off and not giving much value, and they seem to be crashing the economy around us. But, you know, there's something that a point that people miss, and that is what money is. And, you know, people bash capitalism. Capitalism is basically, well, the definition of capitalism is having a market-based economy with money as a means of exchange, and people more or less are able to set their own prices privately. So if I choose to sell something to someone else, I can ask whatever price I like and come to an agreement with the customer as to what they want to pay. So it's a private exchange of goods and services on a market-based economy, you know, and no third party comes along and says this is what you have to set your price as for what you're selling. So, you know, and it's also, I guess, got to do with the accumulation of wealth, which, you know, you're allowed to save a certain, you know, unlimited amounts of money, I suppose, and then invest it in productive enterprise. Now, when it comes to banks, I guess their function in the capitalist so-called economy is to provide credit so that people can, you know, if they don't have the money they need, they can borrow it and put it to good use. Now, when it comes to the what is money, you know, that becomes a whole another issue. Like, you know, you've got central banks. Basically, they're private owned. They pretend to be publicly owned. They pretend to be part of the government, but they're mysteriously not part of the government, and you know, are given independence apparently. Now, it's not really a public utility. They've been given a monopoly, these central banks, on the issuance of credit. They have a monopoly on, you know, they get to set the interest rates. They get to fix the price of interest on what all the banks, you know, below them get to lend at. And what's more, they create the money out of nothing. You know, the banks themselves below you know, they've just got this window of credit where they can just keep on borrowing. Now, you know, it's a pretty simplistic overview, but that's basically, you know, most people think that these banks are public, the central banks, that is, and you've got above them the Bank of International Settlements, the BIS. And basically, you know, the Bank of International Settlements has no, you know, it doesn't get any scrutiny. There's no oversight. They're completely secret, everything they do. And, yeah, the Bank of International Settlements in particular has no... yeah, it's just very mysterious. No one knows much about what it does. It doesn't ever get audited. A lot of people talk about the Federal Reserve, you know, because it's one of the biggest central banks. But the Bank of International Settlements is where everything happens. That's the nerve center of you know, this central banking bizzo. This well, it's really a Ponzi scheme. You know, they create no value other than facilitating loans and exchanges between central banks. And everyone just pretty much a money laundering operation between central banks, where they can hide everything they do. So they deserve the biggest bashing of all. The Bank of International Settlements. So basically, that's a good place to start. We've got the lines open, by the way, to anyone who wants to call in. The number's 213-943-3434 if you're in the States or Canada. If you're on Skype, you can Skype us in. Just go to the live page and use the Skype button there. So Basra couldn't join me today. He's basically lost his internet connectivity for the weekend. He got screwed over by his phone company and wouldn't let him on the internet. I believe it was something to do with a telco taking over his account without his knowledge, and obviously thinking he was getting a fake bill or something, and didn't pay it, and they cut him off. Anyway, one of those things. I think that the culprit, the telco, is actually going to get a good hiding for it. I think we'll be able to make them pay some compo and stuff. So anyway, here I am. I've got the whole show to myself, and we're having a Fireside banking bash, like they deserve. I mean, a lot of people, I was talking about this show coming on, and they're like, well, what a waste of time, You're going to sit there and rant. You're going to just talk about the banks and how bad and evil they are. Well, I think there's a lot to be said about what's going on with the banks, and they've basically formed a bit of a cartel. It seems like there's competition between them. They've all got different brands. They appear to be competing with each other, or unfriendly to each other in the business world. But nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, I really don't think there is a lot of competition, and they both basically have a monopoly on the issuance of credit. And you've got the likes of JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and big mega global banks like that. There's only about 5 that really run the show, and they really do commit most of the fraud, major fraud, and so much damage to the economy. You can hear that sucking, well, you can't really, and that's the problem of inflation, vertical integration of markets, consolidation. I mean, they've got a printing press, so they can pretty much buy what they like, and make every kinds of money in between every trade. They really got it going on, and they're, where do I start? I mean, the way they what do? They basically create credit out of thin air. I've said that probably 3 times now. JP Morgan, they're just an example of how they vertically integrate markets and take them over and call themselves market makers, is, say, copper. Like, for quite about 5 years, they basically started owning all the warehouses of copper, physical copper, and they increased the price, get this, by moving the copper between the warehouses constantly. So they'll actually move trucks around, load them up, unload them between warehouses, and they're not necessarily far from each other. Now, the cost of the transporting and the unloading and the loading increases the price of the copper. So they do this make work program just to get it up, and so that's a level of control they have over that commodity, that particular commodity. Then you've got gold and silver. Basically, you've got them trading all kinds of inflated paper. How do I put this? They basically use the same fractional reserve method that they do with money and credit to, or people's deposits, as they do with gold and silver. They will issue, 10 or more pieces of paper for every ounce of gold they've got physically. And so you end up with an inflated market, and they keep issuing more paper, which basically decreases the price keeps the price of silver and gold down, even though the demand's pretty high and everyone's actually in a buying mode at the moment, and they're having trouble getting their hands on physical gold because of what they're doing. They're basically counterfeiting gold and silver. So it's something they hadn't really done in the past, but now they're really trying to. They don't want gold to get too high. It basically, shows that the paper monies, the Federal Reserve notes, etc., are looking bad if the gold price is too high. So it's pretty much a store of value there, and paper money is not backed by really anything. Well, it is backed by something, but like the American money is backed by the American Empire, their army, that kind of stuff. The oil is basically linked to oil. Back in '72, Richard Nixon closed the gold window, opened the oil window. Basically made a deal with the Saudis to and everybody else to trade exclusively in US dollars when it comes to oil. So any oil purchases will be traded in US dollars. So, the echo's gone. Oh my God. No, it's not gone. Oh, that really sucks. Anyway.
You got a caller on hold that wants to talk a little bit about the Rothschilds whenever you want to take the call, okay?
Oh, fantastic. The Rothschilds, my favorite peoples. Come on down.
Good afternoon. I stumbled across your site, and I wanted to add, I'm sure you're familiar, but maybe the listeners aren't. I'm Brown Beasley, by the way. The Rothschild family is a German, Austrian family, and around the early 1800s, Meyer Rothschild, his family was involved in the bullion trade. And what they did is that they were transporters. They were, like a modern-day Brinks truck, okay?
Yeah.
And what they do is that
they traded in slaves pretty heavily too, yeah.
Well, later. Well, probably then at the same time too. But what they've done, what are the things that they've done, or which are probably millions of things that they've done that are so egregious, is that they had access to information because they were constantly sending bullion to pay for supplies for wars. Okay. In fact, Nathan Meyer Rothschild, who's Meyer Rothschild's son, he was instrumental in financing the British war effort. Well, what they did is they would get information.
This is the Napoleonic Wars.
Exactly, early 1800s.
Yep.
So when Napoleon lost at Waterloo, okay, that information was not available to the people trading in London and the markets there. But he got access to this information sooner than everyone else. So let me speak slowly so I can get it right. Sure. I think basically what Rothschild did at that time is he bought French bonds, and he loaded up on them heavy. And what that made everything look like, it looked like the French had won, okay, when the opposite had happened. So everyone else followed along because he's the Warren Buffett of his time.
Yeah.
He's rarely wrong. He loaded up heavy. Everyone else jumps into the French bonds. He sold them off at a top and bought English bonds for little or nothing. Then the information hits the board that the English had won at Waterloo. the millions upon millions of dollars or pounds or gold or bullion that were made off of that one deception alone was huge. This Rothschild family is the forefather to the Swiss banks. He had a number of sons. I believe it was the first gentleman I mentioned, Meyer, had a number of sons, and he placed one in France, he placed one in England, and he had one in Switzerland. And they continued along. Just thought that I would add that. And the term for everyone trading dollars and oil, the dollar is what's called the world's reserve currency. So the majority of the time, all oil, which is billions and billions and billions of dollars, all oil trades are first done in dollars, which means a country has to transform their currency into the dollar in order to purchase oil. And that alone is probably one of the main reasons why the United States invaded Iraq, because Saddam was threatening and wanted to sell his oil without having to go through the dollar, which is the world's reserve currency. Continue on.
I think you've made some great points there, and the Rothschild story is an important one. I really appreciate you adding that.
Well, you asked where do I start, and you were talking about J.P. Morgan, which is a continuation of the same type of stuff.
Well, that's right, and I wasn't starting from the beginning there, and certainly the Rothschilds is a good place to start. Imagine that, being able to manipulate a market that way. The Rothschild family backed both sides of that war as well. So the war debts of either side. But he what a trump card to pull the rug out from the British economy that way, through a sleight of hand. Getting major control of the markets in Britain through that one stroke.
Insider trading on steroids.
It is, and it continues today. I mean, the insider trading, the Congress of America exclude themselves from insider trading laws. They go after someone like Martha Stewart, who, supposedly did an insider deal, is taken to the cleaners. And she did. She got taken to the cleaners, and Congress, on the other hand, say, "Oh no, we get it exempted from that sort of stuff. That's our bread and butter," and they make laws. So you got people who are making laws and allow themselves to break the law financially, as well as other things. They'll even exclude themselves from things like Obamacare. But anyway, so it's been institutionalized, that whole culture of insider trading. And when you look at things like, if you know anything about day trading or stock trading on the stock market, you'll know that the big banks call themselves market makers, because they, throw their humongous liquidity into basically manipulating prices. So that they'll use their volume and stuff like that to basically set prices the way they want them and make money in between. They
trade. Many people don't understand what a derivative is. Okay. Many people don't understand, and that's the trading of derivatives in mortgage securities, that were introduced into the marketplace and packaged into the marketplace by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. But what a derivative is, I don't know if anyone's familiar with a futures contract. What a futures contract is someone makes a bet, and they're able to put anywhere from 2, 3, 5% on a particular commodity with expectation to take delivery, even though delivery is never taken, 6-9 months down the line, anticipating whether it would go higher or lower. A derivative is the same instrument, except you're able to use it on anything that's traded, instead of a physical commodity. And by having a 2 or 3% equity and being highly leveraged, in mortgage-backed securities, and they're returning. There's a point that they were returning 20, 25, 30% a year throughout there were tremendous profits made. But when that market turned around,
pretty high.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, double digits is pretty high yield, yeah.
And they sold it to everybody all over the world. It was sold to the banks. It was sold to school districts. It was sold to municipalities. It was sold to banks all over the world, to the Chinese government. What could be safer than real property in the United States? But, of course, no market moves in one direction forever. Basic common sense. When it turned around the other way, there was no one to buy. So if your position goes down 10%, not only do you lose your original stake, your 2 to 3% that you had there, but you're on the hook.
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking at Investopedia here. Definition of a financial derivative of Investopedia.com. Basically,
did I get close?
Sorry? Yeah, you did get very close.
Let's see how close I got.
Yeah, sure. A security whose price is dependent upon or derived from one or more underlying assets, in this case, mortgages. The derivative itself is merely a contract between two or more parties. Its value is determined by fluctuations in the underlying asset. So it's linked to the value of mortgages, or there's derivatives on a lot of products like commodities as well.
Every product they trade in derivatives. Now these are highly profitable. These are highly profitable. The banks have, they specialize in this type of trading. For instance, if I could take $1 million, okay, and buy and put $1 million into a particular position with 2% equity, okay, every time it moves 2% to the upside, I've doubled my money.
Wow.
So if it moves 20% in a year, I've gotten 10 times my money, or 10 times the bank's money. It's it's certainly profitable, but it's dangerous as heck.
Oh, yeah.
It's dangerous as heck. So when it's going good, and
it's a big party.
It's a big, huge party. But when it turns around, you have a huge crash, and they put it on the backs of the taxpayers.
They sure do.
That you have to, and that's exactly what happened this last time around. With the decline of the economic collapse of 2008, and speculation and leverage purchasing and leverage investments is the same thing that happened with the crash of 1929. Boom bust.
Yep. And there was a law that came out of the Great Depression called the Glass-Steagall Act, which basically separated your speculative commercial banks from your lending banks.
This happened before. And under the Clinton administration, the Glass-Steagall Act was repealed, and that's how you got these banks that were not only able to do commercial banking or do banking with individuals, regular mom and pop banking, but take in depositors and again fractional reserve system, but they were also allowed to. Were allowed to trade. And look what happened. They were so greedy, they ran wild with it. And you've had huge companies. And you know something? They knew, I have to believe that these bankers knew that if they pushed this thing far enough and it collapsed, that the government would have to come in and bail them out.
Yeah, I think they made the calculated risk. And in the meantime, they convinced everybody through these guys called quants, these tech mathematician wizards, created algorithms and things and software, high frequency trading platforms, and convinced everybody that they had eliminated risk through magical mathematics. So yeah, maybe the banks to some extent convinced themselves of that, but I actually think there's a bit more behind that. I think that the crash of the booms and busts are calculated to me, from the very top.
So
I think that the quant theory and the black box algorithm stuff was really, perfecting their market making, their price fixing regimes, so they could just go hell for leather and bring it about faster than the inflate the bubble to proportions never seen before. And it's interesting, just as a side, as far as booms and busts and bubbles go, I really believe the next bubble is going to be carbon. I think that nothing like getting a law behind creating a market, a forced market that wouldn't have existed otherwise, through government intervention, and then ride that bubble, until and really come down with another big crash at the end of it.
What exactly do you mean by carbon?
Well, carbon trading. And the carbon, we got, like, I live in Australia, and we've had a carbon tax for nearly a year, and that's transitioning into a market mechanism. So they have a carbon trading scheme, which is like a stock market for carbon dioxide theoretically, and certificates are sold to swaps between polluters. And the banks, of course, are going to handle all this. The Bank of Rothschild itself in Australia is basically setting up this carbon scheme here in Australia. So, just speaking
it's already in Australia. So when they can find a way to do it in the U.S. In other places, they will.
Yeah, and they're doing it in Europe too.
It's the same people.
Exactly.
It's the same people. It's the same mindsets. It's the same secret group that nobody sees or hears that institutes these policies. And
that's right.
It's interesting. It's interesting. It's obscene is really what it is, and insidious is really what it is. And the sad thing about it is that there's not too much that you can do about it.
And that's sort of, I think, what scared a few people away. Some friends of mine, I was trying to get on to have a good bank bashing with me today, and one person at least said, "Well, what's the point? We're just going to sit there and get angry or something. There's nothing to do about it."
We're going to teach you and then learn a little bit. I'm all for it.
Right.
What they can't do, I'll help.
Yeah, thank you.
What they're unwilling to do, I'm willing to do.
That's great. I'm glad you're here. But I do believe that there's something people can do. I mean, it's not easy. There's no easy solution.
What can you do politically? I mean, at least here in the U.S., what can you do politically? I was telling someone this on another blog talk show. They were talking about that they're going to organize in their area, and part of her radio show was on terrestrial radio, which means regular radio, and they can organize and they can do this and they can put this together. I said, you're really naive if you think that you're going to have the wherewithal, the power, and the influence of a multinational corporation with millions and millions of dollars. And
certainly,
you're being, and I can appreciate the position of someone that didn't want to participate in a bank bashing. Is like, I can think of something more, I can think of a battle that maybe I can win, like perhaps cleaning out my garage or something. or getting a little rest from my work week. So I can appreciate someone not being up to the task to even talk about it, or even to get angry.
Oh, sure. I think that I guess one way to look at the situation with finance conquering the world and all that kind of thing, and how can we fight back? Black market is I think a wonderful thing. People using cash to buy things. Even better than that, not using Federal Reserve notes, not using the national currency. If you can find anything else you can use as a means of exchange that works.
You got gold and silver you can barter. People like cash. They're comfortable. You can use gold, silver. You can barter. There's many ways to operate. Most. Go ahead.
Sorry, go on. There's electronic currencies like Bitcoin emerging, which the central banks are openly saying they're worried about.
I haven't educated myself really as far as what Bitcoin does or where it's used, but I hear talk about it, and apparently it's growing as a currency. You know, and that's dangerous as well because it's not regulated. Not that it's any more dangerous than the U.S. dollar that's regulated by these bankers that are printing that are printing them on super duper steroids. That's going to cost. I just came from food shopping. It's amazing, and that's the first place we're seeing it. And I don't care how they cook the books to say inflation is down. Try to go buy some fresh fruit, and I'm in California. Try to go buy some fresh fruit in a state that's a large fruit producer in the middle of the summer, and it's unbelievable, the prices.
Yeah, it is amazing, and the GDP. This is how they cook the books. They say, and inflation. They don't count food and they don't count fuel. I mean, they're two essential things in society. So, you know, and they're the things that tend to really take the hit. So, you know, take those things out. If you're looking at stock prices and things like that, then yeah, the economy looks good. But you know, the stock prices don't reflect the reality of you know, like I said, you've got market makers in there, 5 big banks who you know use their volume trades to push prices one way or another. They, you know, it's just not a reflection of reality anymore. You know, it's not capitalism is not what we're seeing. The natural price discovery mechanism is broken because you've got these price fixers in there. So yeah, you can't look at the stats at the moment and really take much reality from it. It's all manipulated.
Look what they did to the price of gold a few months ago. They drove it down 20%. They drove it down 20% for no fundamental reason. The fundamental factors haven't changed, and now smart people or people that have seen fluctuations in markets knew better, but most people thought that here it is, just another bubble. When nothing could be more, there's a finite amount of gold. They can print this money forever and ever. It's called a fiat currency. And every fiat currency that man has ever created has gone bust. Every single one, eventually.
They have. Yeah, they have.
Every single one has gone bust. And I can't see, well, can you imagine the pandemonium? What if the G7 or the G20 or whomever, they got together and they decided, you know, this dollar is too dangerous, it's too shaky. We need that. It can't be the world's reserve currency anymore. No one has confidence in it. Mm-hmm. We're going to go to the Bitcoin, or we're going to go to something else. The value of it would probably drop 20-30% overnight.
Of the new currency? Or the old currency?
If the dollar were to be replaced with some other currency or some other form of payment as the world's reserve currency, its value would drop exponentially. Is that the word? Drastically, dramatically to the downside overnight.
Yeah, I believe it would. Yeah. If you, that's usually what happens when a fiat currency dies and they replace it. The new currency is usually highly devalued. They usually fix the price at first too, and try and buy back the old currency and stuff. So, yeah, I mean it's interesting how. I mean, you know, the world's in trillions of dollars of debt to some shady cartel of banks. You know, they're exposed. The big 5 banks in America are exposed to about $250 trillion in US dollars in derivatives. You know, basically exposure that they've lost value in. And yeah, like you said before. I think they could take the risk of, you know, exposing themselves that much with the, you know, they can basically hold a gun to the Congress's head or whatever government and say, well, we're just going to collapse take you all with me if you don't
That's
bail us
exactly
out.
That's exactly what you saw happen.
Well,
I mean,
just to pop in really quick here,
Sure.
when we're talking about banks and we're talking about the PTB, we know that obviously they're involved in energy as well. I just wanted to pop back onto this carbon tax issue. Congress budget released a analysis. This was I'm reading something from May of 2013, where it says the cost will be at $20 a ton, and estimate about $1.2 trillion in revenues over a 10-year period. Although it goes on to say, without accounting for how the revenues from a carbon tax would be used, such a tax would have a negative effect on the economy. The higher prices it caused would diminish the purchasing power of people's real wage earnings. Lower real wage would have the net effect of reducing the amount that people work, thus creating the overall supply of thus decreasing the overall supply of labor. Investment would also decline, further reducing the economy's total output. But they go on to say that that they haven't committed to this yet. But they go on to say that spending the revenue might result in a net benefit if they turn around and they help low-income homes most affected by the rise in the cost of electricity. Now, of course, they're not going to invest this money in other resources of electricity. They're not going to invest this money in reducing the cost of electricity or, finding something that is more sustainable and something more affordable for people. What they're going to do is they're going to take more money out of people's pockets to feed the machine, and that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, they're going to use it to further oppress people, really.
Absolutely. The history of the rich over the past, let's say, 750 years has not been an altruistic one as far as looking out to help people that were lower than them. It's about maintaining, at worst, maintaining the status quo, and at best, increasing their position and their strength and their power and their wealth, such as capitalism.
Yeah, and people don't seem to learn that lesson. They keep thinking or hoping and dreaming that that government and the ruling class are going to look after us if we give them more money and take over things and run things responsibly if they had the money to do it. They've always had the money to do it. They don't want to share it with you. They can basically print all the money they like, and they're using it to pretty much buy everything up. If I had a printing press, what would I do? I'd go and I'd take over every commodity. I'd financialize every asset out there and have everybody owe me. And use that as leverage against everybody. I mean, if I put my evil hat on for a second, it all becomes very clear.
Now they're also not taxed on derivatives, are they? CDOs and stuff like that. Wall Street, those Wall Street derivatives are not taxed either, are they? Those speculative investment derivatives.
It's just a trading instrument. So whatever
not
profits.
taxed, yeah.
Well, I'm sure whatever profits they earn, they're taxed. But what type of taxes? What type of taxes does a bank pay with, as many write-offs and they know how to play the game. They created the game. They created
pretty
the
much.
Game. They created
pretty
the
much,
game.
And
so
politicians are cheap too. Like politicians are an amazing investment. If you give them $50,000, you can get billions of dollars worth of laws passed for you to protect your interests. You can make certain departments, oversight committees or whatever, turn a blind eye to what you do. The result is that they're well above the law. I mean, Goldman Sachs basically put their own man in Greece and Italy after the prime ministers there started to get a conscience and say, oh, you know what, I think I'd better do something to protect the people from you guys. And sort of raise a hand against the banks, or almost, look like they're going to. Away they go. They're shunted out of office and replaced with a Goldman Sachs agent, no less.
Is that what Berlusconi Was he threatening to do that? And then all of a sudden, it's look how they can disgrace someone. The Berlusconi, I guess he's going to prison for having sex with prostitutes or underage prostitutes. Another interesting case. What about the guy, the French guy, Strauss, who was head of the IMF? Obviously this guy has a voracious appetite for women, but I just can't see someone in that power, in that position, getting himself in this much monkey business, so to speak.
Getting busted even.
Now they're saying he's involved in the prostitution, and how does this happen? What is he doing to catch this type of? Is he actually doing these things, or is he going against the grain, and they're out to destroy him?
Yeah, it's hard to say because
it's hard to say, or is it a little bit of both?
I think so, because what I've noticed, and I was actually checking out, I follow a whistleblower named SIBEL EDMONDS, and she's a whistleblower from the FBI. She was a translator. I won't go into her story deeply, but check her out, SIBEL EDMONDS, SIBEL Edmonds, and she was on the Colbert Report. Or Covert Report, I think it's called, a while back, and she was basically talking about how with the NSA spying and security state spying, the biggest danger of that is the dirt that they get on politicians, judges, people in positions of power, and there's a trend basically where you get really, really scummy, bad judges, bad politicians and stuff, increasingly so, because they are the easiest people to control.
You have someone that they have something on, and you can control them. That's what J. Edgar Hoover did.
Exactly.
That's out of the J. Edgar Hoover playbook, and he did it forever. Interesting enough, it was
never
said
stopped.
that. Well, interesting enough, you see the same things happening over and over again, particularly in U.S. history with clandestine stuff like this. It's like there's one playbook, and things continue to work generation after generation. Apparently, the organized crime or the mafia, which did exist, but J. Edgar Hoover, who's head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the largest federal law enforcement agency, denied the existence of the mafia, and it was said that they had the goods on him. They had pictures of him in committing and doing homosexual acts, and it's probably true. Because it's been proven that I think the evidence is out with this guy that he was a homosexual. So that's another thing that's so dangerous about the NSA spying. And you want to know something else? You hear that it happens in the U.S. Australia is part of the first world. The same forces that are in effect or that are behind the scenes with this spying on Americans, it has to be happening in Australia too.
Absolutely, we've got
Well, what's happening in Australia. One of the architects is Murdoch. Look what he did in England. You don't think he's doing it in Australia? Or you don't think that it's being done? Or you don't think the technology is shared?
Yeah, absolutely it is. And, then you've got Echelon, where basically the Echelon program, where all the first world countries are spying on each other on behalf of the country they're spying on. They just share it with each other, and that sort of gets around the so-called legalities of, or illegalities of domestic spying.
Information junkies. I wonder what they're trying to get out of Snowden right now.
Oh yeah, I mean Bradley Manning, they just released a photo about of the army released a photo of him in drag or something, just because. They're horrible people, and they work on blackmail. It's all a blackmail system. That's why they want to spy on people. It's not about terrorism, in my opinion, at all. It's about having dirt on everybody so that we go along with whatever they want.
And you can draw connections. You can draw connections to all of this activity. You can draw it and connect it directly to the banks.
Absolutely. Yep, that's why I go there. That's right, because...
now, I may not be able to do it off the top of my head, but I know that I could spend a little time on Google and do a little research and find a couple of books, and because I've done it before, and it's been explained to me before, you can draw it all back to the banks, which is the ultimate power. What people don't seem to realize, particularly here in the U.S., and I don't care how long you've been preaching it, and I've been aware of this for, not that I'm that enlightened, but I have a little bit more information, and my mind is open enough to accept things more than a lot of people. The power really doesn't lie in politics. The power lies in finance. And,
absolutely.
And finance makes politics tick.
It does. Yep.
And people can't accept that.
No, they seem to want to separate politics from finance, like somehow politics is going to triumph over finance, but that's just not how it works. I don't know how you're going to get the two separated and have the people in power of the politicians. I don't think that's possible. I think the interests lie in the money. So, and the way the money works. The good Rothschild quote is, "I care not who makes the laws as long as I control the money supply." Yeah. There's a badly paraphrased, but that's basically what he said, and it's quite true. If the issuance of currency is taken away from the people, or the control of currency, then you're just going to be a slave to, especially if it's fiat currency. If it's not backed by anything tangible, if it's not backed by gold or silver or something that you can, trade it for something of real value.
With a true value.
Yeah. Instead of just bits of paper that backed by the faith and the credit of the people, which is basically trading on the productivity of the people through central hands.
You mentioned the dollar. You were explaining it before. What was the Federal Reserve note on it? It's good. On it, good. It said good for all debts. Public and private. What is issued on now, since it's not backed by gold or silver. It's issued on the full faith and credit of the United States people.
Yeah, and that's basically so. All of, at least in America, the taxes don't pay for the services. They don't actually, they don't bring you the roads and all of that kind of stuff. They borrow every cent that is spent on that, and basically the taxes pay the interest on those borrowings. So the government is in debt to the banks, to the Federal Reserve, and that they also sell treasuries and stuff like that. There's foreign holders, as China and all those guys are holding U.S. debt, but basically, it's a bit of it's selling out future generations. It's borrowing on future earnings of taxpayers. So when you're trillions in debt and you're way above GDP as far as your government borrowings go, and your taxes are just paying the interest and hardly even touching the principal that's owed. You are basically every service that you want from the government is simply indenturing your future generations.
Let me ask you that and I'm asking a rhetorical question, but to make a different point or the larger point, is that sustainable? Can you constantly and forever spend more than what you take in?
Well, mathematically, it's unsustainable.
Okay. Well, what happens when the U.S. or whomever? Well, hold on. You don't have to use the U.S. You have sovereign countries in Europe that are unable to pay their debt. So what do they have to do? They have to negotiate with the European Union, and they have austerity plans, which, for lack of a better term, is that we're going to have more control over your economy, and you're not going to be able to meet your obligations, and most of your obligations are to your citizens.
Yeah, and that undermines sovereignty as well, because completely, because you have to negotiate with a foreign power, basically, which is the EU, the supranational unelected banking committee, basically, that is the EU. Negotiate basically your default and hand over your assets and liquidate everything and cut back your services. So
what
then
what does this country end up losing? Their sovereignty.
Well, yeah,
their borders means nothing. We're seeing a steady move towards this. Move. We're seeing a steady move towards this, and which leads to the larger goal of, what's the name of the show? Illuminati Exposed.
That's right.
A one world government and a one world bank. It's not an easy thing to accomplish, even when they have all the cards working in their hands. And why do you think the just curious? Well, and I've tried to figure this out myself. There's been a drive for one world government, one currency, one banking, one large world government for centuries now. Ever since the existence of these so-called enlightened people, the Illuminati. Why do you think it hasn't happened, even though it's far closer than it was 50, 100 years ago, or 200 years ago? Why hasn't it happened yet? What is your theory? Why hasn't it complete? Or has it happened and has it happened a lot more and it's just disguised where we can't see it?
Yeah, I think it exists. Certainly financially, the integration has happened. There's only 3 countries without a central bank that's connected to the Bank of International Settlements, and those countries are under threat. I mean, you got, what are they? Iran, North Korea, and what else? Syria, I think. Libya's gone down. They were an exception. So, the dominoes are falling. And when you look at what the cause of these wars are, why these countries are such pariahs, and why we seem our leaders seem to be going out of their minds about their existence. Or their regimes is, they're not real threats to anybody. They're pretty small countries, and not as sophisticated as all that. But yeah, I think it has a lot to do with there not being a BIS controlled central bank in place there.
What does BIS stand for?
Bank of International Settlements.
Okay.
Which is
enlighten me to what the Bank of International Settlements is.
Yeah, well,
I don't know everything.
Yeah, sure. No, it got established in the 30s.
Let's learn.
And it was put together by the Rothschilds and Rockefellers and the Warburgs and the usual suspects. That's the central bank in Switzerland, through which all the central banks trade, and they're completely secret. They have immunity from all national laws, international laws, whatever, and everything they do they do is secret. So they've never been audited. They're much like the Federal Reserves of Federal Reserves. It sits on top of them all, and it generally issues the credit to the rest of them.
This is the hub, or the international bankers.
That's right. Yeah. It's the round table where.
Okay, I know who they are.
That's right.
I mean, I know of them. No one knows who they are. These are these are the people that are inaudible and invisible, that control that are extremely powerful and control many of the things that go on in the world, particularly the evil.
Yeah, and they launder money between governments and central banks. So, or not even, just the central bank. So, you'll only know about them as much as they, want you to know. The rest is behind closed doors, and they just don't tell you. So yeah, they're quite mysterious. But you can imagine that most of the action, is centered there. The World Bank and the IMF operate from that as well. So yeah, that's basically the go. Which brings me to the economic hitmen side of things. Have you ever read John Perkins' Confessions of an Economic Hitman? Ever heard of that book at all? Okay, I'd highly recommend that.
Let me jot it down.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, John Perkins was he's a self-confessed economic hitman, and since back in the 60s, he basically would go out on behalf of big mega international companies like construction companies, stuff like that, and would sell an economic plan, a neoliberal economic plan to third world countries, Indonesia, Ecuador.
Got an idea.
Right. Nicaragua.
We come in with the idea to help. We loan you money, and as security for these millions of dollars that we're going to give you to help improve the way of life there, we're going to need the deed, or we're going to need you to put up your water system or your electrical system. Right,
exactly.
and then they default on the loans that they know they're going to have, and basically at a fire sale, they take over, the water of Peru, or all the electricity in Peru, and then they put the squeeze on them forever. You got it.
All
right, I got a better idea than I thought. Then, so.
That's pretty much how it works. They get they talk them into a big World Bank loan.
When they're desperate.
Yeah, and they promise that we're going to build this infrastructure that's going to cause an economic miracle, like they said in Indonesia or Argentina or places like that. And what they're really doing is building the infrastructure for multinationals to extract the wealth of that country. It doesn't really benefit the locals. There aren't any tax benefits. They get massive tax breaks and all of that. The economic miracle doesn't happen. It doesn't lift that many people out of poverty at all. And they've got a big
when you're
big debt around
making a loan, when you're making a loan with someone desperate, you probably can set the terms.
Yeah, and this is the problem. It's not like they're lending the money to entrepreneurs. They're lending the money to governments, and the governments then, exclusively contract for the services to be delivered.
Get a handful of corrupt guys that are going to benefit from it, and they'll
sit offshore anyway.
And when I say a handful, it could be as many, 50, 100 people in the government.
Exactly.
Push the agenda.
And their crony, family elites who benefit from it as well. So you basically it's fascism. This is why I'm basically I'm a anarcho-capitalist. Anarchist, was a libertarian, but what's the difference between libertarianism and anarchism? About 2 or 3 election cycles, if you're paying attention. But this is where I see the problem. You see private, really, really, really powerful private interests who control, whole markets, who are monopolists, control the money supply in a lot of cases. Dealing with governments and corrupting them, and basically having a de facto shadow corporate government behind that. So this is why I'm for free trade, but I'm not for the kind of free trade that these guys are pushing. These guys are pushing monopoly capitalism, the crony capitalism. And they control it all through these central banks. That's their conduit to this corruption. A lot of people, we need more regulations to rein these people in. That sounds fine to me on the surface, but as soon as you scratch it, there's so many problems there. I just tend to find, I don't know how you feel, Brown, but freedom is the answer. What's the question? And the little people could do a whole lot better for themselves, with government out of the way and their crony, banksters behind them.
Well, government is just the administrative arm of finance. Of finance.
Yeah.
We already know that the financial interests are wicked and not looking out for anyone's best interest but their own.
And they're bargaining away our sovereignty.
That's what you're going to see it probably in Europe first.
Well, yeah,
and
this
it's probably
integration.
they just haven't. You can't tell me. It's not in the news as much lately, but I mean, what countries had to get bailouts in their? You've had Spain, Greece, Italy, Portugal. I think Ireland's in trouble too. Ireland's in trouble too. You see it right there. You can't tell me that these countries are as strong as independent countries than they were before. The problems that they've got themselves, the problems that have come across, where they've had to, where they need help, they needed bailing out.
Mm-hmm. But this is the thing. They keep throwing. See, the bailouts are like throwing more debt on the fire, and it's like pouring alcohol on a fire. This is the mentality that they've got. We need to fix the problem of debt by putting more debt on it. That's not a logical solution. We need more loans to cover our loans. It's crazy.
I'm sure every time that you have to refinance, so to speak, that one of these countries has to refinance and renegotiate their debt because they can't even pay the interest, that there's more that they give up. There's more that they give up. There's more that they give up.
They're not getting anything for free.
No. I mean, I can really simplify it. Anytime most parents that will help their children, particularly their adult children, there's a certain amount of control or oversight, or even if it's as much as sharing their opinion, but the parent may be never expecting to get paid back. Okay, in principle, is gonna insist on some type of control on the behavior, the thoughts, everything of what this child, whether it be a minor child or adult child, of what they do.
Yeah,
there's rules. It comes with it. There's
absolutely,
restrictions.
It's a great.
It's a very simple analogy, but I find it true, and I think this is
it's a very good point. It's a very good point, because the third world countries, for example, like when they get their bank loans these days, there's all kinds of strings attached, and one that really jumps out at me is population control. A lot of the African countries and Latin American countries especially, when they get a World Bank loan, there is always, Planned Parenting programs, population control programs that they have to implement as part of honouring that loan. So they actually get right into, a country's policy. Whether it be financial policy like smash your unions, or liberalize your currency, all kinds of things like that. They'll even get into if we're going to lend you money to build a healthcare system, but you're going to have to put this much money into abortion clinics or vaccine programs, aka population control programs. They really stick their nose in. Another great example of that is the Philippines. I was listening in on a broadcast about it was actually at an extraordinary technology convention in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and interviewing some energy, novel energy, renewable energy type technologies, and one of them was Filipino, and basically he had a saltwater catalyst. It was a household level technology that was a really great way to produce just about free energy, and he took it to the Filipino government, trying to get a subsidy, saying, you should fund this, and we should get this in every home. We can end oil dependency in the Philippines. And the government was basically, no, we're not going to do that. And when asked why, they pointed out that the terms of their World Bank loan prohibited them from assisting any technology that would end oil dependence. So there you go. It's just,
Well, like England, and I'm sure some of the other colonial powers in Europe, when they let go, or they finally decided to leave countries in Africa, they set them up as trading partners, and that was part of the agreement. As part of the agreement, and they convinced the people that their land was useless, and you couldn't grow, and you couldn't do this, and you couldn't do that, and you have to purchase it from us.
Yeah, the old mercantilist economy, where mercantilism, basically with the Commonwealth back in the imperial days, they wouldn't let people build any kind of. They couldn't finish their own products in the colonies. You'd have to send the raw products back to London. They get to finish the products and then resell the products back to the world or back to the Commonwealth. And you can kind of see that a bit with the way globalization is shaping up. They seem to have picked, a particular place, China and a couple of others, as the manufacturing base. The rest of us are either service industry or raw materials production. So, with this import-export, and they're making, they're fixing it all up so that, you grow oranges in California and you export them. It becomes expensive locally because most of the production goes into exporting. Now, exporting fresh food.
Is that why the fruit I bought is so expensive when it has to travel 150 miles at best?
Yeah. Well, because you're also importing oranges, when you don't need them. So, it's a bit weird, like this 3-card molly. You gear towards exporting rather than your domestic market, and that ends up inflating the price at home. And you've got competing goods from overseas for the same products you produce at home. It doesn't make sense on the surface of things, but when you've got banks sort of taking over everything, like finance conquering the world, this is what you end up with. You end up with incentives all skewed the wrong way. Instead of producing for the local market, you're producing for everybody else. And I don't know if I'm articulating that whole situation properly, but that's sort of it in a nutshell. This globalization process. Everything's financialized, and meanwhile, farms are being run out of business left, right, and center. They're being consolidated, corporatized. The big agriculture gets rules put in place to make the small producer, just cost more to do business, and bring in all these EPA laws to basically fine them for things, stupid things like dust, or arrest them for selling raw milk or something like that. But So anyway,
I'm almost furious. I'm almost furious and frustrated. Keep going.
Well,
what was the guy's name in the movie Network? Howard what? Played by Peter Finch, that won Best Picture. Might be a little before your time.
It's definitely been a while. Go ahead.
I forgot his name. You know, when he told the people in the TV show, he drove them all into a frenzy. And, you know, I want you to stick your head out of your window right now and say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's a classic. I mean, you know, people kind of got to get that way. I mean, I'm not saying everybody blow a gasket and go crazy. I think
wish
people
you could just get people to do that.
Yeah, you know, at least, well, people want to put their time into something constructive, I suppose. They don't want to necessarily burn everything down.
There are those that will protest. There are those that are feel angry enough that they feel they want to take action. If you just got everyone just to stick their head out of the window, or if they were just to march and keep it a real simple thing to say, we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. Isn't that what Occupy Wall Street tried to do all over the country in the U.S.?
It is what they tried to do. And I mean,
isn't that what the people in Spain and the people in Greece that are out there writing? Isn't that what the people in Egypt are doing?
Yep. Look, I guess something has to give. I mean, there's a breaking point somewhere, and we're pretty close to it. And a complete financial collapse is, to me, inevitable. So this is the thing, right? This isn't sustainable, as we established earlier. I mean, it's mathematically just not going to happen. It's not going to be paid off, and either we, put a stop to it now, or the next generation or the generation after that are going to, because they're going to know what's going on. They're going to be saddled with the debt. You know, they're going to be paying through the nose for everything and getting no benefit. I mean, it's getting to the point where what's the point of government, because they're not going to provide any services now, because they're just sucking everything out of us to pay the banks back. So, it's going to hit at some point, even if it doesn't absolutely crash, which I really think it is going to do at some point. I'm not going to tell you when, because, who knows?
It's already crashed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's already crashed.
I would have thought it.
It's already happened.
We're pretending like it hasn't happened.
Well, it's already happened. Can it happen again and intensify? Yes. It's already happened. So I definitely think that Generation Next is going to, at the very least say, I'm not paying. Like I'm not getting anything in return. Like this is obviously a Ponzi scheme. I can't even get. There's no old age pension for me, and there's no, the health system's in the toilet. Certainly in Australia, it's in the toilet. In Britain, it's in the toilet. You've got Detroit. That's just it's a vision of things to come. Basically, I mean, every other major city is pretty much in the same boat. That just hasn't been declared yet. What comes next? I mean, I would like to hope that what comes next is people withdraw their consent and find other ways to do things. They just go, well, that doesn't work. I'm not going to keep my money in the bank. I'm not going to believe what I'm told by my politicians. I'm going to start finding. I'm going to start growing my own food. I'm going to barter. I'm going to keep gold and exchange gold and silver for things. Find a way, get onto Bitcoins. Just whatever. I'd be careful with Bitcoins.
I'd be careful too. I'd just say to the folks out there, I wouldn't use Bitcoin as a store of value. Okay,
right.
I wouldn't mix that up with anything like gold or silver, which I believe does retain its value, and it has for the past 5,000 years, and it tends
absolutely right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's worth doing if you want to store value. Now, Bitcoin I would only use as a means of exchange to basically load up my wallet, buy what I need. If I'd receive Bitcoin, I would exchange them for something else. There are facilities out there you can actually exchange it straight to physical gold and silver and have it delivered to you. So there's those kinds of things you can do. And then there's just, I've heard of small towns setting up voucher systems, representing time, basically. So, you have an accepted certificate that you can actually bring into local businesses who recognise it, and you can basically exchange that for, things of equal value, like your time. So, that's particularly useful if you're a tradie or something like that. You've got a trade. You can exchange your labour for certain things, or your labour is represented in that certificate. So someone's given you that certificate for, giving them labour, and you can have a small scale off the grid economy like that. Because there's always work to be done, there's always whether the problem is the lack of money or the value of money around when it comes to being in a depression or something like that. There's a contraction of the money supply, so there's not enough to go around, and so jobs are shared. And it doesn't mean people don't actually need those jobs to be done. So if you can just find another way to exchange your what you do, your skill, for other things. Then unemployment doesn't need to be as you can create your own work. There's always something to be done.
You're actually speaking in terms of an answer and solutions. I commend you.
Absolutely, because you can't.
It's really
just
easy to complain and identify the problem, and I've done this on other shows. And they will say, well, how do you fix it? I was like, I don't have any answers. That's like really not my department. I can help outline the problem. I don't have necessarily the answer for anyone else. I live a decent lifestyle. Am I willing to let go of my cable television with all the channels and my high-speed internet connection? Air conditioning? It's hot out here where I am.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing with all this austerity.
Am I willing to let go of my first world comforts or my middle class comforts?
Well, that's what the banksters would like you to do. Yeah, just go without. Austerity's trendy, and it's all about your well-being. They're trying to push this well-being thing instead of actual wealth, measuring wealth. They want to measure. Well, are you happy? And seriously, if you're freezing your balls off, or you can't heat your apartment, I don't know what's going to make you happy, like drugs.
Or you're hungry, or if you're living in a war zone.
Exactly. So
right.
all the ill effects of the what these banks get up to.
All the effects of being a have-not.
Exactly. Being a have-not, measuring the well-being index, I don't know how they're going to skew that one. They're talking about having a happiness index or something. And GDP is a joke, but the happiness index, I think, will be an even bigger one. But anyway, yeah, I do like to get into solutions for sure, because we do end up getting tied up in knots about these things, and rightly so. But there's got to be, humans are very smart critters. They do tend to be very adaptable, which can be a problem. Like we really have been manipulated into sort of this uninformed sort of fat and happy sort of decadent culture. But I think that we really need to find ways to just opt out of this system, and because it creates artificial scarcity. It sucks up resources. It excludes people from participating. Unemployment is supposedly a healthy thing in a neoliberal world. Some measure of it is supposed to be not necessarily a bad thing.
Right. Exactly. They're determining. Right. Here, be a spoke in the wheel and be happy. At least you're a spoke in the wheel.
Yeah, exactly, and you know, pretty much
you'll never have any real freedom or or being able to control over your life. But you should be happy being a spoke in the wheel. In fact, it's even worse now. It's, you know, be happy being a spoke in the wheel and severely underpaid.
Yeah, and there's something that the banks have been trying to push for a very long time through governments, and that is, you know, a national ID card, or better yet, being able to, you know, just track everybody everywhere they go.
Well, they can through cell phones and smartphones.
Well, that's right. I mean, is the cell phone, the smartphone, the new national ID card by stealth, or is it a driver's license?
It's an international ID card, more than an ID card. It's an international tracking device. It knows your thoughts. It knows who you associate with. It knows your interests. It knows the type of things that you buy. It knows who you know.
Yep.
It knows who you know. It knows what doesn't it know. It does actually a little bit more. On some of these applications that you can download over the internet that they're pushing in your face, the small print is pretty alarming. If you just look at the small print on PayPal, you're giving them permission to photograph you, to record you. Did you know that? Yep.
Yeah,
and I'm sure it's in most
I'm
sure it's in most applications. We found it in quite a few of them. Same type of language. You're giving them permission. I'm sure with Comcast, with my cable company, I'm giving them permission to record me, even if the device is off, and to take my picture, maybe take video pictures of me and distribute to whomever. And I think that language in these applications and these different things, the small print that no one reads, but it's there.
Sorry, go on.
It's just frightening. It's just frightening, and that people are. Well, I think it ties into. How can I say? Well, I think it ties into the entire NSA tracking and spying and gathering of information and data. This is these companies' way of letting themselves off the hook.
Yep.
If you agree to these terms, and you know the small print, it's incredible. It allows them to share. I mean, I've read that the NSA and the government has devices and has their servers directly connected to Facebook and all of these other and many other online entities. The type of information that they're gathering now, it's amazing. Why who could be this paranoid that would want all of this information? Because there's a lot and you know what most people say? And I even have to convince myself, okay? I mean, right now our conversation is probably being recorded for eternity, particularly if you're calling from overseas.
Yep. Yeah, this is also broadcasting live.
Let's just say hello to those nice people listening in from the NSA and everywhere else. Welcome.
Yeah, hi NSA. Yeah, creeps.
Right. Give them the call-in number.
If you want to call in NSA and tell us about some stuff,
you have to have an opinion, right?
Yeah. I was just following orders, but 213-943-3434 if you're in the States or Canada. Please call in anyone from government, NSA, the security state, and say hi. But I doubt you will.
You've given him the wrong number.
Did I?
Yes, you did.
Oh, yeah, I did. Oh, okay. No,
I gave him a Los Angeles number. I think you have a 646 number, right?
646 595-4861. That's 646-595-4861. I gave you the secret back door number or something like that. But anyway.
There you go.
Look, actually, speaking of, here's a bit of positive bank news. There's a guy in Russia, and what he did was he kept getting applications for credit cards, and he didn't like the terms and stuff, as high interest and penalties and all that kind of stuff in the fine print. So he he printed it up. He scanned it and he changed the fine print and he gave himself 0% interest and 0 penalties, and he gave penalties to the banks for breaching the agreement and everything. Changed the fine print.
$35 if I pay a day early.
Yeah, that's right. So he sent in the application in, and they signed off on it and everything. And then they tried to get him for $1,000 interest or something down the track, and he activated, some of the clauses he wrote in the contract, and now he's suing them for something like $70,000. So or $700,000.
He's going to find himself in the gulag.
Yeah, well, good luck to him. He's using the same defense. He's using the same defense as the banks do, which is, well, you should have read it before you signed it. He's got him in a legal gotcha. I mean, that doesn't mean the courts are going to rule in their favour. They're generally commercial courts these days anyway. They're not really operating under the the office there. They say they are in most cases. I don't know what the deal is in Russia. But, anyway, good luck to him. I don't know if he'll be successful, but he certainly made a good point there. And got me thinking, this is all contract law that we're dealing with. We're all dealing with universal commercial code, and that's what these courts really serve is the UCC. I live in a common law country, but I know that the courts here are basically bank run, and they're commercial courts, and they're for-profit organisations. They are not operating under common law, where individuals have rights. It's all contract law. So if you look at your interactions with these corporations as contracts, and you exercise your rights as someone entering into a contract. Now, if you just sign what they put in front of you, I think you're pretty much screwed. They've got everything tied up in a nice little package, so that they have no liability and you have all the liability. But people should be thinking about what it is they're agreeing to, and pushing back a bit. Like if you're going to go into an agreement with the bank, open an account or whatever, look at the I know it's boring and they make it intentionally boring, but look at the fine print and try and change it if you can. Say, hey, I don't like this bit, change it. I know we don't probably have.
I can't imagine being able to do that. I can't imagine being able to go into Chase Bank or a big bank here. And say, hey, something? I'm looking at this checking account terms. I'm not going for that. We're going to have to cross that off. Can you get the manager? And you tell the manager of that bank, no, this paragraph, no way. No way. No way.
They don't tend to play a game with that, ball with that, do they?
You're going to flabbergast the branch manager. They're going to be, what? Huh? How many people of 1,000 do you think do that? I think you're better off just not playing with them at all.
I think that's the best way, definitely. I mean,
if you can, I personally can't, and continue to do business. And but I'm mindful of what you're saying, though.
I just use them as little as possible. I don't keep much money in the bank. I do internet banking and pay some bills. I've got some automatic sort of debits happening and whatever with different things like web hosting or things like that.
I'm frightened by that. I've never had a good experience allowing anyone access to my account, whether it be once a month. I'd much rather write a check and send it to them, or pay by card, even if it's over the net. I've never had a good. I've never had a good experience. I really have problems with that.
Well, what I do is
it never seems to work out good for me.
No.
Well, and there's more and more people, and more companies, particularly a gym, that they insist on doing business this way. Or the who is it? Everyone, from the cable company to the people that I lease my office from, You know, by the way, we can just do this automatically once a month. For the cell phone company, they push that on you pretty hard.
Yep. Oh, and talking of being tracked on mobiles and things like that, here in Australia, if you want to get a prepaid mobile or a prepaid internet connection of any kind,
right.
by law,
where you're not getting any type of contract where you have to have credit, where you would have to even give them your legal name.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know how long ago, but it wasn't that long ago, the Australian government made it law that you have to basically provide photo ID and, use all your correct details and all that information ends up with the government when you purchase a prepaid mobile phone or internet. So you just can't be anonymous and have a phone and or an internet connection. They sort of worked it that way so that because you're a potential criminal. Of course.
What's their rationale? The rationale is Homeland Security. We need to know we need to know who you are because of terrorist attacks and this and that and the other. There hasn't been any large terrorist attack that I know of. In Australia, has there? I mean, what's their stories? Why do you have to do it this way?
Well, basically, the only terror attack that's happened, none have happened on Australian soil.
And we plan on keeping it that way. That's why we need your information. But go ahead.
Of course, of course. It's a simple presumption of guilt. That if you want to have a phone or an internet connection that does not, identify you, then you are up to no good, and that you must be a criminal, basically. And that's the answer I got pretty much when I questioned it. I didn't have photo ID when I went to buy a prepaid mobile. I had to sign pretty much what was a statutory declaration with all my details. Yeah, a government form. I had to fill out a government form to get a prepaid mobile phone because I didn't have photo ID at the time. So, that's how that went down. I went and got an internet, a prepaid internet, and I basically just lied. Okay, I just went, this is my name, and I gave them they wanted a driver's license number, and I just gave them a random number.
Wow.
And that worked, but at some point, I don't think I got the full use out of it. I think it was $100 worth of internet, and I think it got cut off at some point. Like they just decided to switch it off. They must have looked up the driver's license number, and it wasn't real, and so they shut it down. Anonymity in communications is not allowed here in Australia. And that's really.
And if the rationale is, and it sounds so good, and it sounds like if you're not up to anything, why would you care? There's at least here in the U.S., I don't know what you have in Australia. I mean, there's the Constitution that it's designed to give you, some semblance of privacy. And that's all gone out, completely out the window. People,
your Fourth Amendment there, yeah.
Well, they've really smashed that thing into the ground. And the interesting thing is that the people on the far right, they're so consumed. I mean, the what they care about the most is the Second Amendment, is the right to bear arms. But and they will. I mean, look, they're telling Obama wants to take your guns away. That maybe they do, but the legislation that they were proposing that didn't get anywhere, didn't even get up for a vote, was just there's already 335 million people here. I think there's like 280 million guns.
Yeah,
the legislation that they were talking about, which didn't get anywhere, was just that hey, let's just have background checks on people that on new purchases. Does nothing about the 280 million guns that are already out there. But the amendments to the Constitution, not the amendments, the Bill of Rights, which are the first 10, rights, the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure, You're safe in your home. In New York City right now, I mean, you've got you have stop and frisk, where they can stop someone based on not too much, and they stop you and check you and pat you down. If that's not some 1984 New World draconian stuff, and they're saying that that's the reason why crime has stopped, how people aren't up in arms over that is beyond me.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, actually, and it does tie into the whole bank thing, the Second Amendment. Basically, I'll lay out a bit of a theory for you of mine, and that is that they need to disarm the population, or at least, get big on gun control, because people are going to figure out this whole banking thing, right? People are going to,
right.
understand.
If someone understood, I guess if someone understood, but you know something? Continue.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
because there is. That's all right. There is more. Basically, you've got foreign countries hold a lot of U.S. debt. The banks hold a lot of U.S. debt, or are expecting to get paid back. This is going to be an intergenerational thing to get anywhere near recovering the money, which is never going to really be paid back. But anyway, the source of money, the taxpayers are going to cop it all, and they, at some point or another, you can't have them armed and ready to be any threat to that investment, if you know what I mean. So, an armed, American population.
They've got to be able to provide the basics, and the basics, in America, the very basics. If someone was able to get Section 8 housing or and food, and food stamps, which are huge. Those are the basics, and the basic can also include, an internet connection and a flat screen television. That's luxury in some other parts of the world.
Yeah, definitely. I guess the point I'm making is that the attack on the Second Amendment, I think, has a lot to do with the threat of the Second Amendment to making good on the debt. Because at some point I think people are going to I'm not paying, and you can send your Waco killers. That's I've drawn the line. I'm not paying anymore. And if too many people do that, well, those beneficiaries of this massive debt are not going to get paid. So
if someone feels that strongly, they're better off just killing themselves. I think it's absurd that someone, even a small group of people, think that they have that they can compete against. I mean, I don't know how much you watched of the after the Boston bombing, after the marathon bombing, the way they shut the city down, and that was a police department.
That was really in your face.
They roll out like an army.
They went house to house, pulling people out of their houses and going through and confiscating guns.
I don't like to fight battles that I know that I don't have any chance to win at all. My skills are more in talking and negotiation and thinking, and I mean that's for someone else to do. But there are some, I guess, that feel that strong and feel that I'm not among them. Just for the NSA people and anyone else that may be listening in.
No, I'm in no way advocating any violence. I only would advocate.
No, you're just putting forth the theory.
So, in any case, I think that if not this generation, then the next one or the one after that, certainly going to get to a point where they're just not going to want to be a part of this anymore. And I think that the whole thing's going to melt down. It just can't go on.
I see people.
It has gone on for quite some time, though.
I see people becoming right, exactly. I see people becoming more and more conditioned to accept less, deal with more. I mean, accept less, being able to work with less, and into a real bleak existence. I mean, for lack of a better illustration of this, I mean, look how willingly the Jews in Europe, there wasn't that much armed resistance. Not that you could win, but there was some, but there wasn't that much armed resistance to what the Germans were doing.
That's a really sad part of that episode in history, is the lack of resistance.
You're a human. You're going to do what you're going to do. Basically a couple of things. There's fight and there's flight.
Yep.
People can be so conditioned to just acquiesce.
Yeah, or there's submission. That's the thing. And
right.
It's scary to think people just going along to get along to that degree. Just going, well, they're an authority. They've got a gun and a badge. So
they've got guns. They've got guns, and I mean, just using Schindler's List as the movie Schindler's List is my best, idea of what happened. I mean, if someone didn't participate or walk too slow, or they shot him right there in the head. That would try to get everyone else moving real quick.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's getting down to about 13 minutes, so that's great. So and we've got a chat room open as well on the page that we're streaming from. But I'll just plug the Facebook page quickly as well. Facebook.com/the NWO will fail. Also, I've got Facebook.com/Truth will overcome tyranny, and a new one that I've started on recently with a friend, David, also named David, is Facebook.com/Screw the Banks, and I've been having a lot of fun there over the past few days, sharing some information. A lot of what we're discussing today has been posted there as well previously. The one about the Russian and the he screwed the banks good, and hopefully he doesn't get screwed anyway. There's a series of videos on the Bank of International Settlements where basically explains what it is in detail, who's involved, what it does, and that kind of stuff. So anyway, and I was going to say, just as far as finance has definitely conquered the world. The EU was a big finance consolidation, central banking maneuver. Happened over 50 years, basically. Just going to turn into a new Soviet, pretty much. And that's an interesting thing to say, is to call the EU a new Soviet-style union. Because especially when it's heavily involved in consolidation of banking. One of the central planks of the Communist Manifesto was central banking, and a lot of other things that we see growing up around us is outlined in the Communist Manifesto. I mean, I don't want to sound like one of these right-wing nuts. The commies are coming. Red's under the bed, all that crap. But look at central banking.
They have an all new line of thought. They don't talk about communists anymore. Well, maybe some do, but no. But they are amazing. They're on Blog Talk. They're on Blog Talk all over the place. I've engaged them from time to time. They are amazing. They're amazing.
Yeah. Well, they'll call it socialism, and which is better. Look, communism is socialism in a hurry. Okay, the ends are the same. The means are just different getting there. and people have trouble with that. No, they're two completely different things. And I went to university, and they told me all this stuff about socialism. And unfortunately, it's a very interesting sort of phenomenon where you see the academic world embracing this thing called socialism, and really it's centralizing authority and having so-called experts, do all your reasoning for you and run society for you. And what you see as far as central banking goes really is socialism. It's socializing the costs and privatizing the profits. You see with things like
right.
Communism, fascism.
The losses are public, but the profits are private.
Exactly. You see people like Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan taking obscene bets on futures markets and all kinds of markets, and he basically when he wins he keeps the profit. When he loses, he lets his investors, the shareholders, take the take the hit, and if not them, then the public, the taxpayer.
Well, what's also interesting is that with the stimulus, with this unlimited stimulus of $85 billion to $100 billion being approved by the Fed and given to these banks, they're getting brand new money to bet with. Every single it's like someone losing money at blackjack and then going off to the government and getting topped up. But whether they lose or not, they're more likely than not they're winning.
Well,
they're more likely than not they're winning, and they're still getting additional money to bet with or do what they choose with the expectation that hopefully it will trickle down, and it doesn't.
And that's what we call in the economics world a moral hazard, because there's no incentive to be careful with your money. I mean, it's not your money in the first place; it's other people's money, and you're putting it on the roulette table, and basically, if it comes up red instead of black, that there's no real, you don't physically feel the loss, or if you start to, you can just cry and beg the government, we're too big to fail, and most of what they do is fraud in the first place. So it's moral hazard.
Remember Hank Paulson, the guy that was the head of the Treasury when the collapse was happening, when the collapse was taking place, right? Before the election in 2008. He's also a former chairman of Goldman Sachs, by the way. In fact, if you go back, I think to even in the Carter administration, their Treasury Secretary is always someone that seems to be that's connected with Citicorp or Goldman Sachs or one of the huge banks. He said
it's basically here
he had a simple one-page here. I need you guys to approve this right away. It was a simple one-page thing. We need $700 billion, and don't ask us how we're going to spend it. Sir, I just need this right now, and trust me. And he got there, and he pitched it hard, real hard on television, real hard. Don't ask any questions. The sky is falling. If you don't do this right now, there's going to be complete chaos.
That was the gun to the head that I was referring to. They went in. He went in front of Congress and basically threatened them for money. Said, it's all going to come down around our ears, and we're pulling the trigger if you don't bail us out. And they were bailing out foreign banks as well. Foreign banks, it turns out.
They're all connected. He's saying these are the banks that they sold these securities. They sold these mortgage-backed securities that have gone bad, that were performing so well for the past 4 or 5, 6 years before. They sold them these securities. Hey, by the way, I'll get it taken care of from you. Just relax. If you look at the web between AIG, that gave they sold basically insurance policies. They sold insurance policies on these securities that came with these securities that say, hey, listen, you can put as much as you want into it because you've got the biggest insurance company in the world saying that they'll back it up if it goes bad.
Yeah, which was not the case. But
and what
they weren't able to anyway.
What put the squeeze on liquidity of AIG is that they were demanding their money and they were getting it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth looking at.
All these banks all at one time saying, hey, we pulling the trigger on everything that was going bad. And it took a multi-billion-dollar company, and brought them to their knees.
Absolutely.
This will happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to happen. Look, I'm going to bring in, there's a couple of other people on hold here. We've got 5 minutes left, so we'll bring someone else in. Who have we got here? Hello there.
Hello.
Who have we got here? You're live.
Oh, am I?
Live on blogtalkradio.com/the NWO will fail. How's it going?
Well, I was just calling in saying I like you guys' show. I like the Illuminati exposed pages. I just joined the Screw the Banks page.
Cool.
Keep it up, guys. I like you guys. I like the way you guys do shit. It's fucking awesome.
It's David's show. I just stumbled on. I talk too much.
Yep.
Yeah, he's keeping me company here.
That's all.
My co-host Basra Parsons couldn't make it.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm just free flying today, and having a good bank bash. Anything you want to have to say about the banks, the banking system?
Well, I hate the banking system. I hate the government. Pretty much everything to do with that.
Fair enough. To the point.
I hate the bank.
Yeah, there's not much to like about them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, do you know anything about fractional reserve banking, or got a sort of a clue about that, or you just generally, see the banks as a monolithic evil? You're not sure why, but they just got to go or something, or?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't like how people feel like they can control the people just because they have the power, such as the government and the banks. They control the world, I mean, I don't like the fact that they can think that they can control us and shit,
They can control us, though, and they do control us.
They have the power as of right now, but, I mean, Iceland overthrew their government. Why can't we?
Well, that's a great point. Iceland's a great example. I think that Iceland's an example of a smaller population having a bit more direct control over their own destiny, because there's only about 300,000 people in Iceland. So, it's much easier to sort of reach out and grab a neck, if you know what I mean, and go, get the hell out. But larger populations, it's not quite as easy because it's not as easy for as many people to become enlightened to the problem.
They're also heterogeneous. They're basically one peoples.
Yeah, well, they're pretty much one big family, So I guess there's that too. There's that family instinct, that tribal mentality to go, they know their neighbours. I think that counts for a lot.
Yeah.
But then,
actually, we're talking,
Oh, that's okay. Actually, if you don't mind, we've got less than 2 minutes, so I'm going to quickly grab someone else, get them to have a shout out, and then we'll wrap it up.
You guys have a great night.
Yeah, you too, and thanks for calling in.
I'll
thanks
call
for
into
listening.
your show from time to time for sure.
Please, yeah. All right, so all right, I'll see you later. I'm still a bit, getting used to doing broadcasts and being radio-like. Okay, who have we got here? We've got another caller. Anybody there? Hello. This is David Lopez. How are you?
I'm great. I think that people should just stop using the banks. Then there would be no,
Yeah.
They would fall. Like,
I think so.
But it's like most people, you have it's almost like you have to use the bank, but if you didn't, if you just was like, you know what, I'm not going to use it, you know, they would eventually would fall.
I think so. If people didn't do business with them, I'm a big believer in wallet voting. You know, I think if you don't like something, don't give it money. If you do like something, you know, promote what you like by giving it money, by participating in that market. If you don't participate in dealing with banks, or you minimise it as much as possible so they don't get hardly any money out of you, well, that's certainly, you know, that's a vote, isn't it? That's a very strong vote, and I think it's. Sorry, go on.
If people were to just focus on like their local bank, and how come it's so difficult? Like, if people wanted to start like a local community bank, why couldn't people do that? Like, we would,
they do have it. They have credit unions, and credit unions are probably the most viable answer because they're not for profit.
We're just about to end the show. Sorry.
You're good. No, you're good. You are still streaming. Yes, you're fine. As long as you don't hang up, you are still streaming. So just continue, okay? You're fine.
All right,
Go ahead and take it off.
Well,
please finish your thoughts. Please finish your thoughts. Sorry, what was your name?
She left.
Oh, she's gone. Okay. Oh, still there. I didn't think it's gone.
Yeah.
What is your name?
I'm Doris.
Where are you calling from?
Hi, Doris.
I'm calling from New York.
Okay.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm in Melbourne, Australia. So, sorry, you were saying setting up a community bank. I mean, yeah, you can. You know, there's building societies and credit unions and things like that. I mean, it's not straightforward because there's a lot of regulation and there's a lot that, you know, has to go into actually putting one together.
But they're not for profit.
That's what's good about credit unions.
So if you do get a fee, they're not anxiously and plotting against you to get fees, and it's a far nicer experience. I use both, but the credit unions are not for profit, and I mean some of the things that happens just with your local bank, if it's bouncing a check or whatever, the fees are so ridiculous, and then the runaround that they give you, you don't get that as much in a credit union.
Yeah. I get.
And they exist, and your money's just as protected as it is in any bank.
Yeah, but weren't they trying to limit the amount of like the local banks around? Because I heard that I think it was either last year or they were trying to like limit.
They get themselves in trouble. The local banks get themselves in trouble, and they're not even to have the cash reserve. And when he speaks of fractional reserve banking, I think the law says that a bank has to have 5 to 6% of all the money that's deposited with them. They have to have that available in cash. They have to be liquid for at least 5%. Now they can have loans out for everything else, and many of them are unable to keep that amount of cash available.
And mind you, all the regulations, you know, the local banks, the small people, the smaller banks will rest assured get all the regulations enforced on them, while, you know, the big guys are generally exempt or get a pass or a small fine for laundering drug money or whatever. So, yeah, there's definitely a disparity as far as you've got to remember, you know, that governments tend to, you know, serve the interests of the big banks, and they'll use their guns on, you know, everybody but them. So that includes smaller banks. You know, they'll definitely.
My contention is that the governments work for the big banks.
Yeah.
They work for the big banks.
Yeah, I say serve their interests. That's what I mean. Yeah.
This is who they answer to.
Exactly.
And politicians, the ones that we see, they're basically the administrators.
Yep.
They're also the administrators and the managers. And what does a manager do at a job? A manager is kind of like the buffer in between the wishes of the boss and the wishes of the employees. He works at a manager kind of, you know, cools everybody out to keep the machine running.
Pretty much, that's right.
He softens and implements and the wishes of the boss, and he gets the employees to produce. The employees gripe to the manager, and the manager also oversees them. So it's that type of relationship, and people really need to see that.
Yeah, it's how I see, presidents and prime ministers. They're like the managers of a franchise. They're not the owners. And the owners are the ones that really pull the strings. The manager just cops the everybody's vitriol and a birdcage liner, basically. So we lost that caller, but we'll put on another one quickly.
Got a lot of them. This is good.
We got two more. So
good.
Who have we got here? You're on live, blogtalkradio.com with David Lopez. Who's this? Do we have you there? You're on. All right, I'll quickly move on because I got to.
Big brother, don't be shy now.
Okay, I'll try this one. You're on live, Blog Talk Radio. How's it going? Hello? Anybody there? I can hear someone shifting around, but
Hello.
We hear you out there, big brother.
How's it going? Got anything to say about the banks? Hello there. All right.
He may have pressed 1 by accident.
I think he's making a coffee or something.
I'm afraid of you, big
anyway.
brother out there, but I'm facing my fear. Dave is not afraid because he's all the way in Australia, but I'm afraid of you, but I'm facing my fear, you big bully, you.
No one's untouchable. Look, as far as I'm concerned, what do we really have to lose? I mean, I think
I'm going to speak my mind.
Yeah, exactly. I'd rather live on my feet than die on my feet than live on my knees. Is basically, my motto. And
let me ask you this. So, in the United States, we have the Constitution, which is being trampled upon. But what confidence exists between the government of Australia and the people? I mean, Australia's a democracy. Australia is also part of the Commonwealth. Is the Queen on your money?
Yep. Queen's on the money. It's interesting in Australia.
Can you explain that? What does that mean? It's like so. At one time, Australia was a British colony. It's not a British colony anymore. What does that mean? It's on the Canadian money. In fact, it's even on the Canadian gold coins.
Yeah. It's pretty much the same deal. Well, it's pretty much the same deal as Canada. We have dominion status in the Commonwealth, which means that we have our own parliament, and we federated in 1901, became a federation, and had a constitution of 1901 was signed off, which keeps the Queen as the head of state, and all laws that are passed by Parliament need to have be basically stamped or approved, signed by the Governor General, who's the representative of the Queen. But what's interesting is that, so she gets the final say theoretically on passing the laws. But I think since the 70s, we began, we became like a corporate government, like, we got registered in the District of Columbia, and became got on the commodities, the exchange, trading as a company. So now we're basically under some sort of pseudo corporate government. As opposed to having, the Queen involved in all these things. It's complicated, but that's all kind of happened under not many people are really aware of that. We kind of sold our sovereignty out quite some time ago. I believe
you sold your sovereignty for your freedom to get them to leave, right? Basically?
Well, this is the thing. I'm no fan of the Queen or being a part of the British Commonwealth. I think that we should be a proper free country. If I had it my way, we wouldn't really have countries. We wouldn't even have governments. But we live in this reality, so that's how it is. But we don't even really have governments. They're kind of fake, posing. They're corporations posing as governments these days. So that makes the whole dynamic a bit strange.
So what exists between the government of Australia and its people that protects I don't know what rights. I'm sure you have very similar rights as we do here in the United States, and maybe not exactly the same.
Well, we don't have a Bill of Rights at all. We don't have any formal recognition of rights, really, and that's what is definitely wrong with our system.
Let's take it from the top and just do the first
common law. Pretty much is all we have to.
Yeah, freedom of speech, right?
Yeah, but it's not formally protected, really. You've got some statute laws and whatever, but then there's a whole bunch of others that take
scary.
those.
So scary. Someone speaking their mind can be drawn into court, and if the magistrate or whomever feels that this speech that they're saying is dangerous, you can be punished or prosecuted.
I believe so. Yeah, we have an Anti-Discrimination Act, which is pretty ambiguous, and they're trying to tighten that up so that you can't even offend people. I mean, they're going to make offending people some sort of offence. So
But people are so easily offended. Right.
Well, of course they are.
But what offends you might not offend me. How do you find a uniform code of what's offensive?
Exactly.
What about the right to bear arms?
Oh man, in 1996, semi-automatics were banned.
Makes it a better place. If semi-automatics were banned here in the U.S., there wouldn't be as many crazy shootings all the time. But that's my opinion. But
yeah, I generally think that people have the right to protect themselves, and be it a semi-automatic or not. And
do you have the chaos in Australia that we have in America? It seems like every month or 2 months where someone decides to shoot up a school or a place of work.
Yep.
Does that happen there? Or gun crime is relatively low, right?
Gun crime, but violent crime's up. So there's a lot more stabbings and actual armed robberies and stuff hasn't really gone down. It's gone up in the double digits. Actually, it's gone up over 10%.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. So this is the thing, you're pretty much not allowed to defend yourself here unless you can absolutely prove, that and even then, like a guy defended himself in his own house with a knife, an Australian, against a burglar who basically attacked him, and the guy stabs him, and the burglar left. He didn't even react apparently to the stabbing. Like he just got stabbed twice in the chest or something, and he
decided it wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, and the guy walked out but he didn't even look hurt. Died later, and the guy's on murder charges. The homeowner. So that's where it's at in Australia.
That's almost absurd as a young, a minor, 17 years old, walking home with a hood on in the rain with a drink and being accosted by a neighborhood watch person, and they get into a scuffle, and the neighborhood watch person shoots and kills him, and eventually is exonerated for that.
I have to jump in here for a second. The Trayvon Martin case is something that I have looked deeply into, and what has been put on the mainstream media is not anywhere near the truth of what the deal is. The child, first of all, they put this cherub-faced child on mainstream media. The guy was a 17-year-old
6'1", something like that. He was well over 5'11". Zimmerman had a conceal and carry. He was previously a neighborhood watch person, although he wasn't for this particular neighborhood. The kid was going to the store to get basically the makings for something called lean. Now, lean is slightly different.
I'm familiar what lean is, and there's no evidence.
Okay.
There's no real. You know something? I see where
there's
you're coming
evidence
from. I'm not going to even debate this with you. You're entitled to your opinion, and and you can continue if you like. Go ahead if you'd like to say more.
Yes. The autopsy report indicated abuse of what is that one? Dextromethorphan. Huh?
I think he had marijuana system, but go ahead.
No, he had internal organ damage that indicated abuse of dextromethorphan. Okay, he'd been using this particular concoction for some time. They definitely had evidence from his Facebook page and talking to people about him attempting to get codeine from somebody else. The concoction
pretty common
itself.
In theory, but go ahead.
What's that?
No, it's pretty common. These young people are drinking this cough syrup, and it has dangerous, strong, addictive drugs, physically addictive drugs in it.
It's more than cough syrup, though, and the results of addiction and usage of this is
it comes in the form of a cough syrup, of a prescription cough syrup. It has codeine and promethazine in it. But I'm sorry to cut you off.
Where was I?
You were talking about the things that were in Trayvon Martin's system, that the way that the media.
Right, and the long-term effects of abuse of this drug are increased violent behavior. Okay, and the guy saw that there had been break-ins in those homes recently. The fellow recognized this guy as not somebody that he normally saw around there, and he appeared to Zimmerman to be someone to be concerned with. He called the police. He was following the guy, but the police said stop. He turns around. He goes back towards his truck, at which point Trayvon Martin come around from his back left, so he was returning. He had been seeing himself followed, and he returned. He begins to beat the guy's head on the ground. Okay, basically uses the ground as a
Zimmerman had to come out of his truck in order for there to become it to be an altercation.
Okay, that's the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard. Okay, that's ridiculous.
So
Bottom line is
he's
out of his truck. He's looking as a concerned citizen who sees something, and he's trying to track the guy. He wasn't stalking the kid or anything else. He turns around because he was looking so he could tell the cops, hey, he went this way. The cops tell him to stop and turn around. He turns around and goes back to his truck. The idea that the fact that the guy gets out of his truck is the reason that Trayvon Martin died is ridiculous. The kid came back, okay, and then beats the guy on the ground with his head, and sees the guy's gun and goes for the gun. Zimmerman goes for the gun, and the kid gets shot. That's what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, look, the way I see it, and I'm not deeply into the whole story.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Basically, I feel that there was a self-defense argument, and a lot of reasonable doubt as well as to whether it was a cold-blooded murder on the other guy's part. So, as far as I'm concerned, where there's reasonable doubt, I think that the legal system has to, basically give the benefit of the doubt, without enough evidence of it being a murder rather than a self-defense, and more evidence being on the self-defense side. I'd rather someone didn't go to jail as a result of that. I think things need to be proved beyond a reasonable doubt. That's all I'm saying. I mean, the kid did die, but the circumstances of it certainly weren't clear enough for the defendant to be put away for it. But that's just me. And I'm just posting a video in the chat to a YouTube video, basically by Stefan Molyneux, and I think he goes into the whole thing very well, and certainly sort of putting that argument that the reasonable doubt was, there's certainly more than enough there to acquit.
This particular case, and I'm sorry, ma'am, that spoke. What is your name?
My name's Kimberly.
Hi, Kimberly.
Hi.
And, you're entitled to your opinion. That's fine. Mine differs. I'm not as emotional about this as I could be. But let's just take a step back and look at, just a bigger picture. This is one instance in one case. And there's murders happening all over this country, all kinds of situations, all kinds of crazy, horrible things on a regular basis. For some reason, this one particular case got an incredible amount of attention. And she's right.
Just that right.
It got an incredible amount of attention, national attention, and what it effectively did, it really drove a wedge. And if you just listen, I'm sure she's a nice person, and she hasn't been speaking. She's on the line, and somehow I stumbled into talking about that without directly using the names, but she knew exactly what I was talking about, and she feels strongly.
Yep.
She feels strongly. She feels strongly, and she's entitled to feel strongly. What this case has done, it's effectively brought out things in people, and if you look at the comments when they're talking about anything they're talking about on the site, it really brings out some emotion in people. And
it sure does.
And you know something? There's been nothing really constructive at all to come out of this.
No, and everything on the media.
It pits people at each other. If I didn't know this, it'd be. I disagree with what happened in the way that it and the ultimate adjudication of the case. Okay, I disagree, but I'm not going to debate and argue this with her. She's entitled to her opinion because I doesn't think it's. I'm looking at a much larger picture where this has well-meaning people at each other's throats.
Yep.
At each other's throats, and you would think something like this being promoted, where whomever's promoting it, the media and everyone that's behind promoting it and pushing this and putting it in your face, and this is a month or two later, she has emotion in her voice because she feels strongly.
Yep.
She feels strongly. It certainly is a diversion.
I agree.
It's certainly a diversion. It's certainly that. Had I wanted to argue this, which I don't, it's likely me and this lady would not like each other.
No, that's not true. Let me explain to you first of all. Let me explain to you first of all who I am and why I feel emotional about this. Because
No, you're entitled to. You don't have to defend your emotion.
Please allow me. Okay. The reason that I'm emotional about this is for exactly the same reasons that you're talking about. Number one, the facts of the case have been convoluted, and in such, it has created a separation. When you talk about truth, at the end of the day, truth is truth. But it's been convoluted, and it's been convoluted by the propaganda of the mainstream media. Now, whether or not the mainstream media used it because they needed a good story, because they needed ratings, or whether or not the mainstream media utilized it because there's an attempt for a race war in the United States, who knows? But the bottom line, at the end of the day, that's what it began to create. If you take a look at the Black Panthers, who put a hit on this guy, okay?
Now hold on a second. You're talking about a group that's called the New Black Panthers. That has nothing to do with the Black Panthers of the '60s, and they have absolutely nothing to do. And when
it's good to make that distinction.
And when you listen to these people talk, they have no following, no support anywhere. Okay. This is a very small fringe group that's more than likely CIA or FBI controlled and operated. And
they've gotten mainstream media attention for a reason.
And they get an incredible amount of attention.
Right.
An incredible amount of attention. And they say absolutely ludicrous, wild, inflammatory, crazy things that would piss that they have no support in the black. They have no support at all in the black community. There's no ground for support, and this has because no one believes in that. I mean, even if you believe in that they spit a venom in this argument, and they get mainstream coverage on Fox News and these other stations, and that continues to stoke the fire. Most people.
When you say they don't have support, they do, not to the extent that maybe would be relevant. But I can tell you, in dealing with this, and I've been doing this for over a year.
They're completely irrelevant. They get more media attention.
Yes.
That they're not. They have nowhere near. The support that the original group had that came out of Oakland in the 60s. It's also something that's interesting. Do you know the name? What was the name of the original Black Panther Party? It was the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, which is the most ironic thing of all.
Yep. Yeah, the
Black Panther Party for Self-Defense that was formed to protect or to watch, to oversee, to be citizen overseers of heavy-handed, Gestapo type police tactics. But to even bring this group up, and you know what? Since you're a well-intentioned person, find out who funds them. Dig a little bit deeper. This group is a fringe group. It's what's called controlled opposition. They're agent provocateurs. And
I'm aware of that. You're talking to the program director and material director for Illuminati Exposed. So I do know what you're saying.
That's
I'm trying to make that point. I'm trying to make that point. You are 100% correct. And
that's exactly who this group is. That's exactly who this group is. And try not to let them inflame you. Try to take a step back.
Yeah, I'm glad you've pointed that out.
Because you're smarter than that.
Well, I'm saying you're absolutely right. That's the point.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so they're inflaming things, and they're getting the media attention, and that amplifies the effect. And yeah, I think it's all race baiting. I think the whole case from start to finish has been highlighted. There's been cases where the opposite races have been in the opposite roles, and a similar thing has happened. And the black man who shot the attacker, a kid with a knife rushing at him. There's another case, basically shot him down and was acquitted for the same reason. So, there's also that didn't get any attention.
there's also a case, I believe, also in Florida, where a black man was on his property and the white guy was threatening him, and he shot the person, and he wasn't charged for a long time. He was eventually charged and convicted in prison. Then there was another story. There was another case afterwards where, I'm just going to paraphrase the case real quick. The woman was arguing with her husband or live-in boyfriend who had beaten her before, and they got into a confrontation, and she went to the garage and got a gun and didn't shoot the gun at him, but shot the gun in a wall. Or shot the gun, I guess, just to show that she was
I heard
serious.
about that.
Yeah, she shot the gun. I can't think of her name. I could find it if I were by my computer.
Fired a warning shot.
Is that the young Latino girl that got stabbed several times by her boyfriend?
I think she's black, and she shot the gun into the wall. Well, she ended up getting 20 years.
20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
and she didn't even hit the guy.
No, didn't shoot at him. I don't think she shot at him. I think she just shot I'm not playing around.
Yeah.
The next one's for you. The next one for you.
Which was pretty responsible, if you ask me.
Far more.
Here we're getting into overcriminalization, and certainly I think it has a great deal to do with people's economic status in terms of we see a lot of the lower the clear for sale, right? So if you got a buck, you can buy justice, and I've been on this before. ACLU is on overcriminalization. That's a really good organization to get involved with if you want to combat overcriminalization. But
I don't know if you guys are familiar with Roy Black. Roy Black is a very, very well known, very very effective criminal defense attorney. He defended the Kennedy kid. Then he had a rape case in Florida, and he won. But Roy Black, basically what we're people start condemning the judicial system, and they asked him, after some case that looked a little crazy, after OJ, I think, they said, well, what do you think about it? What's wrong with our judicial system? Why does our judicial system do this? He says you have to realize our judicial system is part of our larger system, which is capitalism, and capitalism allows those with the wherewithal. You're able to bail out of jail. Secondly, you're able to present a defense, and which is also interesting that people were so emotional about this George Zimmerman fellow. He was able to get a few $100,000 just from donations from the public. He was able to make bail. In fact, I think he made bail, and then he was in jail and he made bail, but he had lied on his documents about how much money that he had, because $200,000 or $300,000 came into their coffers real quick, and they put him back in jail. He eventually got back out, but it also allowed him some very effective counsel.
Yeah.
Some very good, effective counsel that was able to help win the case. And now, back to how did this case get so much attention? Who really benefits at the end? Has this diverted people? Has this diverted people? Has this gotten people's emotions? Has this gotten people you're angry at your fellow citizen who has nothing to do with the case because they may disagree with you strongly, and it's us and them type of thing. And
I agree with you, absolutely.
And it takes our eyes off of the monkey business that's going on around us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It's something that no one in the general public really had a real stake in. You feel like you have a stake in it. You feel like you have a stake in it if you have a home and no one wants to be burglarized and you want to be safe in your community. You feel like you have a stake and you're concerned and you're worried about thugs and hooligans doing things to your home, and you have a stake in it if you have children. You have younger children that may not be of color. There may be people of color that may be perceived to be criminals or up to something. So it hits homes with a lot on
the whole thing.
On both sides of the equation.
And while this is going on, what was it that Obama signed when Congress was out of session? I was reading something
the NDAA.
Okay, all right, yeah. So this is what we need to be talking about, but you've got the entirety of society inflamed on this situation. I'm 100% down with you on that.
I knew that you were a good person. You thought of the bigger picture, and I'm glad my synopsis or my overview you were able to agree with it, because that's exactly one of the things that went on. And the NDAA is the most that allows for the indeterminate. You can arrest an American citizen, not charge him, and hold them forever.
Well, the Patriot Act was only supposed to be something that was temporary for the 2001 events, and it continued to be on the books, basically. A lot of people don't know this.
Obama ran against it.
Yep.
Even in his inauguration speech, he spoke of change. He alluded to the Patriot Act. And as soon as he got in office, he continued it. He's the biggest disappointment ever. He's the biggest disappointment ever.
He's the used car salesman of the century.
On a very high level. He's the biggest disappointment ever. For those of us that were tired of the abuses of the Bush administration. And you know what it further illustrates, that Democrat, Republican, it makes no difference.
No, it doesn't.
You're seeing the same policies, but you're also seeing people say that it's not race, and it might be fear. And I think the fear of crime, in the face of crime. The real face of crime that you see, or that you perceive, if you close your eyes, you think of crime, you do see a black face. That's been programmed into us. Is there black crime? Yes. Is there white crime? Yes, but is there a black criminal element? Yes, there's a criminal element in every ethnicity, and every group. But the fear, the fear that even George Zimmerman had. He was scared enough that he had to patrol and have a gun. I'm sure.
Crime isn't race. Well, as in, they're not intrinsically linked. It's more situation and personality type, I guess. You're right. You've got criminals through every element of society, from top to bottom, and a lot of it's to do with culture, and there's other things involved. But anyway. We've gone 35 minutes over the show, so it's been fun.
It's been a great show. What time are you on next week?
It's 10 o'clock Eastern time in here. That's 5 p.m. PST.
Okay, 5 p.m. California time. Thanks for letting me tag along, and if you don't mind, I'll probably call in next week and try to remember.
Yeah, please.
Your show's been good. What's your show going to be on next week?
Oh, I haven't worked that out yet, but we might be talking to someone about CPS child kidnapping and things like that. It's a pretty bad subject, really. But that might be it. Otherwise, not sure.
You know about Nancy Schaefer, right, David? You know about who Nancy Schaefer is? Take a look at that. If you're going to do CPS, take a look at Nancy Schaefer and the murder-suicide event with her. She actually was fighting CPS. She's was with the 50th Congress, and she was murder-suicided, I believe, in early 2010. Her battle started, I want to say, 2005 or 2007, and it ended with a quote-unquote murder-suicide, which is a very, very common theme. We actually have a show every night, usually, unless something happens and we're not broadcasting just to our callers. So, tune in anytime. David is on every Saturday. He's my Aussie team. Fantastic team.
That's right, Saturday. It's Sunday
so
here.
So you have a show. You have a show every evening. That's the Illuminati show.
Yes, we have Illuminati radio every night. Tomorrow is going to be a 3-hour special. We're actually starting at 4 o'clock, and we're going to talk to a young lady who is an Egyptian. And we're also going to have an individual from Syria on, and then we're also going to talk to an individual from Iran. So it's going to be an interesting show. We're going to talk about.
So you're the one calling the shots. You stay quiet in the background like the banks, and let David do his thing.
There you go.
Well. All right. I'm just trying to get that. I'm glad I was nice to you. This is a nice forum. I enjoy Blog Talk. I participate in other little networks and shows, and a lot. Sometimes I don't always come with the very best of intentions. Today that I did. Sometimes I call and I like to troll a tag.
You a troller sometimes.
Talk show troller.
Yeah, no, I mean, my teams have freedom. My teams have freedom for their material, but I'm the one that deals with a lot of it. But I have total faith in my team, so I never have a problem with their material. They're always
it's part of the game. It's part of the game. But no, I didn't. That wasn't my intention here, and I saw the banks, and I saw what the gentleman was speaking on, and I just wanted to add to it, and look how much time that we've spent together. No, I'm Brown Beasley. I'm infamous a little bit across Blog Talk, and perhaps I'll call in again. And in fact, I'll find it and dig around some. And thank you for your time, and thank you, Program Director. I'm sorry, you told me your name was Kim?
Kimberly, yes.
Kimberly, good. I remembered that right. I'll call in again, and thanks for letting me participate, and have a very nice evening.
It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome,
be sure to look into these new Black Panthers, because they're a fringe group. They really don't have any groundswell of support. There's no. I mean, they have.
I did look into them a little bit.
One last thing. I mean, they constantly you hear people on the right, or just this particular Trayvon Martin case, and you would hear from, I'm assuming, what is people that are white. There's Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson aren't elected to anything. They speak for themselves. They speak for themselves, or they have altruistic. They're not. No one in the black community looks. Not too many people in the black community looks to them as their leaders. That's the hugest misconception.
That is true.
No one has pictures up and says, "Hey, what does Jesse Jackson say?" What people are intelligent enough to have their own opinions, and people,
they kind of put there, aren't they? Well,
they're
kind of
put
just
out
put
there by the press, and they are the
Yeah.
first people to speak. They are the first people to speak up, but they've been elected to nothing. They've been selected. They've been selected, and they've been selected.
And usually, what they have to say is quite hateful, really.
I don't know about hateful. They both speak well. We can go into that further.
Yeah.
They've been selected. They don't represent any. They don't speak for people.
Yeah, I hear you there. They've been selected by the PCB to inflame stuff.
You know what? And some of the times, sometimes, well, they'll speak strongly against some of the stuff that are injustices, but they're everywhere. They're all over the place. They have shows, and they sure inflame the hell out of white people.
Yeah, that seems to be what their job is. Yeah,
they inflame the hell out of white people. Just be mindful of these people that have a microphone in front of them that you think, or that someone may think or assume that represents some monolithic black group. There is no monolithic black group. Black people do not agree all the time and do not all think the same thing. That's why we're killing each other all over the place.
Mm-hmm. That's right. All right. Well, I'm going to take us out. I'm going to apologize in advance for the outro. Yeah, you too. See you next time.
Right.
Just going to take us out with the intro. Basically, it's called "Fucking with Banks." It's a terrible song. It really is. I actually, if you listen to it all the way through, it really is shitty. But I thought it was appropriate for this particular episode, and that's what I'm going to take you out with. So, see you later.
Nigga, fake gangster, you on my long shot, quick to get popped.